UCC, therefore rise to your call. UCC, to the call, let us rise to our call, let us rise, where it has no peace, no man. UCC, therefore rise to your call. UCC, to the call, let us rise to our call, let us rise, where it has no peace, no man. UCC, we are the happiest of them all. UCC, we are the bedrock of all knowledge. Be proud of this, with students and workers in concert shall work, that your image may be heightened. UCC, therefore rise to your call. UCC, to the call, let us rise to our call, let us rise, where it has no peace, no man. UCC, therefore rise to your call. UCC, to the call, let us rise to our call, let us rise, where it has no peace, no man. UCC, we are the kindest of them all. UCC, we are the brainchild of Inaugural. We train, we mold, and live by his mission to impart a virtue that's gonna baby strengthened. UCC, therefore rise to your call. UCC, to the call, let us rise to our call, let us rise, where it has no peace, no man. UCC, therefore rise to your call. UCC, to the call, let us rise to our call, let us rise, where it has no peace, no man.
Ladies and gentlemen, kindly resume your seats. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the inaugural lecture by Professor Joseph Benjamin Archibald Afful. He is a professor of applied English linguistics. This afternoon, he would be speaking on the topic, A Tale of Two Cities, the Case of an Applied English Linguist. Ahead of his presentation, permit me to introduce the chair for the occasion, who will deliver the welcome address and formally introduce our speaker. Our chair is a professor of coastal ecology and interdisciplinary ocean studies, a distinguished scholar with over 15 years scientific project management experience, an outstanding intellectual with publication record in index journals. Currently, he is the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, the acting Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, and recently appointed Vice Chancellor of UCC, effective August 1, 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, with a warm round of applause, let's welcome Professor Dennis Wolanyo Aheto.
Mr. Gideon Enoch Abekoye Esquire, Registrar of the University of Cape Coast. Osaberima Kwesiata II, Omanhen of the Goa Traditional Area. Nana Kwekuenu III, Mwarahin of Goa Traditional Area. Nanamba Yaba, Kontihima of Goa Traditional Area. Nananom Honorable Dr. Kwamina Mintanyakon, MP, Cape Coast North Constituency. Her Ladyship, Hannah Taylor, Supervising High Court Judge, Kumasi. Professor Ernest Kofi Davis, Director General of the Ghana Education Service. Bishop of the Cape Coast Diocese, Retired Reverend Richardson Abuaje Andam. Very Reverend Samuel Kweku Basau, Diocesan Bishop-elect. Professor Eric Opoku Mensah, Vice Chancellor of UNIMAC. Professor Didi Kopoli, former Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast. Professor Philip Ebo Bonzi Simpson, former Vice Chancellor, GIMPA and Methodist University College. Mr. Jeff Emmanuel Onyame, former Registrar of the University of Cape Coast, College of Professors, Provosts, Deans, Directors of Academic and Administrative Units, Heads of Departments and Heads of Halls, Members of Convocation, the clergy, staff and students, distinguished invited guests, our friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am truly happy to welcome all of you to the University of Cape Coast on behalf of the Governing Council, management, staff, students of our university to this special professorial inaugural lecture to be delivered by J.B. Afful, Professor J.B. Afful. A very warm welcome goes especially to our distinguished guests and to the family, friends, and associates of Professor Afful who have traveled from far and near to share in this memorable occasion. Your presence here today certainly underscores the importance you place on learning, excellence, intellectual exchange, and celebrating academic success together. Registrar, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our friends from the media, permit me to use this opportunity, being my first official assignment on campus following my appointment by the Governing Council as the incoming Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, effective 1st August 2026, to express my profound appreciation to the Governing Council, Academic Board, Convocation, the unions, the university community, my local and international referees, alumni, partners, family, and friends for the confidence reposed in me and the opportunity to serve. With humility and your continued support, I am committed to leading UCC in fostering a transformative, diverse, and inclusive environment that drives excellence in research, teaching, learning, and outreach for wider impact on society. Registrar, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me now to touch on the significance of inaugural lectures. The inaugural lecture is a cherished academic tradition that marks a scholar's formal elevation to the rank of professor. It provides a platform for professors to share their intellectual journey, research contributions, teaching experiences, innovations with the university community. More than just a celebration of personal achievements, it reflects the institution's recognition of sustained excellence in scholarship, teaching, learning, service, and innovation. Each lecture, therefore, serves as an opportunity to showcase expertise, highlight research, accomplishments, and engage with society by making research, advanced research, accessible to wider audiences. It inspires colleagues, junior scholars, and students, offering a captivating example of academic dedication and excellence to pursue similar paths of distinction. In this way, the inaugural lecture bridges the gap between the university and the wider public. Mr. Registrar, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me now to celebrate Professor Joseph Benjamin Archibald Afful. Professor Joseph B.A. Afful was promoted to the rank of professor in 2021. I repeat that. So I take my words back. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Joseph B.A. Afful was promoted to the rank of professor in 2021. Today marks, therefore, the formal celebration of this significant milestone in front of a broad audience of colleagues, family, friends, and the general public at his lecture titled A Tale of Two Cities, a case of an applied English linguist. Over 3 decades, Professor Joseph B.A. Afful's academic inquiry has centered on language use within applied linguistics, particularly English, for academic and publishing purposes and socio-onomatics. Friends of the media, in his presentation, Professor Afful will use self-reflection and personal narrative to connect his personal academic journey with broader cultural and institutional structures. This format therefore transforms a traditional milestone into a critical inquiry of academic profession itself. The following elements define his autoethnographic content. First, the lecture frames his career metaphorically as a journey, highlighting obstacles, mentorship he has received, the evolution of research interests, and gaining a voice. Finally, he will argue for the connection between theory and practice, as demonstrated in his teaching research and service to the academic research community, with a narration of his contributions to the research community, the nation, and the larger global community. Indeed, he will emphasize his role in the institutionalization of academic writing as a mandatory course for postgraduate research students at the University of Cape Coast. Let's give him a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me now to present a brief profile of Professor Joseph B. Afful. Registrar. Professor Afful began his secondary school education at the age of 12 at the Secondary College, where he obtained his GCE O-level qualifications. He then moved to Apam Secondary School for his GCE advanced level studies. Following his sixth form education, he gained admission to the University of Cape Coast, graduating with a BA Honours in English and a diploma in education. He later earned an MPhil degree in English language from this same university, after which he completed his PhD in English at the National University of Singapore, in Singapore. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I now touch on his work and leadership profile. Professor Joseph B. Afful began his teaching career at the Apam Secondary School during his national service, and later taught English language and literature in English at the Wesley Girls High School, Winneba Secondary School, and the University Practice Senior High School here in Cape Coast. His academic career at the University of Cape Coast commenced in 1998 as a senior research assistant in the Department of English. He has since held several leadership roles, including academic advisor, registration officer, examinations officer, foundational head of Department of Communication Studies, head of the Department of English for 2 terms, vice dean of the School of Graduate Studies, and the dean of Faculty of Arts. I thought this would attract significant applause. He has done very well. In these positions, he provided strategic leadership, advanced curriculum development, promoted gender equality in staff development, and fostered collegiality. Distinguished guests present, on his teaching supervision and mentorship, Professor Afful progressed through the academic ranks from assistant lecturer in 1999 to full professor in 2021. During his doctoral studies in Singapore, he gained teaching experience as a graduate teaching associate, where one of his students later became a professor in Hong Kong. In terms of supervision, he has graduated 10 PhD students and currently supervises 19 more, along with having supervised 52 MPhil students Thank you. And currently supervising an additional 33. He has also served as co-supervisor at other Ghanaian universities and examined 47 MPhil and 12 PhD theses across Ghana, South Africa, and Australia. Regarding mentorship, Professor Afful has mentored many young academics who have risen to senior positions. His first PhD graduate, Professor Kodom Jesse, was recently promoted to full professor. Other notable mentees include Dr. Yao Oseakoto and Dr. Rita Kelly Chumesi. On his extension and outreach services, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media, Professor Joseph B. Afful has demonstrated distinguished leadership and commitment to academic service through his extensive involvement in boards, committees, and accreditation exercises at both national and international levels. At the University of Cape Coast in particular, he has contributed significantly to research, resource planning, graduate studies, admissions, and institutional development, serving on many key committees such as the UCC Research Agenda Committee, Joint Admissions Board, and UCC Development Board, and chairing several others within the School of Graduate Studies. He also represented the Vice Chancellor at the Marshall College and played a governance role at the Tvucc College of Education while participating in international initiatives such as the ALA Africa Research Network. Mr. Registrar, in addition to these roles, Professor Afful has provided vital outreach services through accreditation and affiliation exercises under the National Accreditation Board, now GTEC. He served as team leader and member in program accreditation reviews for many institutions, including Kesben College, University of Education, Winneba, Valley View University, University of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, as well as many others. Let's give him a round of applause. Indeed, his leadership in these exercises underscores his commitment to maintaining academic standards and strengthening higher education in Ghana. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I now proceed to speak briefly about his publications, awards, and professional engagement. Professor Joseph B. Afful has published extensively with over 85 works, including 70 research articles, 5 book chapters, and a conference proceeding featured in leading journals such as Iberica, Taiwan International ESP Journal, and the Language and Intercultural Communication. He has also co-edited collections, contributed to collaborative projects, and presented his research widely across Ghana and internationally. He has also served as a reviewer for major journals and held editorial leadership roles, including editor-in-chief of Drumspeak and Asemka. His academic excellence has been recognized throughout the world through the National University of Singapore Scholarship, Mellon Postdoctoral Fellowship in 2006, and many other multiple grants. The University of Cape Coast School of Graduate Studies twice honored his doctoral supervision when his PhD students won awards for outstanding theses in 2019 and 2021. Professor Afful is indeed a scholar and an active member of several professional associations, including the AILA Africa Research Network, the European Association for the Teaching of Academic Writing, the Linguistics Association of Ghana, the South African Association for Academic Literacy Practitioners, and many others. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Registrar, I wish to now and finally conclude on his personality and personal related areas. Professor Joseph Benjamin Archibald Afful is the first of 6 siblings. He was born in Sekondi on the 3rd of August 1963 to Mr. Joseph Benjamin Archibald Afful Sr. of Ochibo House, Elmina, and Mrs. Sarah Afful, both of blessed memory. He is married to Vida Ifi Houghton, and together they have 3 children, Mrs. Josephine Kwao, Marilyn Sally Afful, and Priscilla Afful. Professor Afful worships at Wesley Cathedral in Cape Coast, and his hobbies include playing the organ, gardening, and watching African movies. Is it Nigerian movies? I nearly added that to my speech. Yeah. On this note, I wish to thank you for your attention. But before I leave, I've just seen Professor Mrs. Abigail Opoku Mensah, Executive Director of the National Research Fund. I just want to acknowledge you as well. I didn't see you earlier. Thank you so much.
Ago. Ende Jarese kasa hofa. Binum chira kasa. Ine binum susua kasa. Entum panyimfo. Mepeda me bisa dey. Oba no dan na ladies and gentlemen. Beye enuanom na adofo. Nananom. Esuapone mu mpanyimfo. Ekwo simpiasa rebusua. Nyi ogwai mu esuafo nyinara. Michia wan mejara wanjem ahenawa. UCC School Blibola Globe We Donamenao Abe Mafia Vice Chancellor Professor Dennis Walenyo Ahito Ayi the entire UCC community. Prof, congratulate you on becoming a new Vice Chancellor. One to paper cry. Oh, one bo one some more prof. Prof, mpenyine day. Okobron chopara. Woman umbo. Na kwan warajanara. Oje abuano. Professor Dennis Walenyo Ahito. Yecho umprose. Jamo umbo ne juma. Jamo umbo ne juma. Afe Mese Morocco enum na misia imbranti enum a woso so mprati enum no bibisa wan dey warokọ hen wode warokọ enum na wobodo enum no na waabo no enum mesane bibisa wan dey ebe na azi na warokọ ye wo no enum bira waabo no enumi wode Waram manananom UCC esuapon atede Waroko enum akatu nunum aposa ma ankronkro ye wo ha nyinara ya tenen kankan de Obenfo Joseph B.A. Afful ye mpiti na mpatrapa kwa de chebi na nkemne chebi a won kare no ansa na wehunde obetekere in 3rd August, Orura yer Afful. Wo obasrum kubi was sekendi. Onyami ama. Sayasha wa brabo min sama. Hene somfo aranye de. Oba Afful demufua. Wona de. So one wo amba abozi nyansa periazi da Prof, enche abozi nyansape bosha inzepa owo mu na wazi anwene. Professor Joseph Afful. Owo Profu Kesem Aben. Fancy Kesem Aben. Adusium Aben. It is some general cry. In a Musuda, Eben Azinti, in a wawful 1 2 or Ben no 2 Joseph. Prof wasn't a freedom. Wasn't kumkom. Wasn't in fun department in it at Shamada. Me here at Tumpan, Namizes wasn't what I say. In 2 minutes when you yam umpada, no when you yam engine of Falker. Fancy you dish out, quasi bronye intum infa brofun dadao. Prof, so quasi bronye chin will brof for casa. In a oye, hunam coco, na oye anutsu yibia. Prof, what you mudode is su. Iya in rubber punch rafa. Is the department see enyum? Na is it in the pub fee? Professor Joseph. Mupo wuzina in a mental washabre. Na winyum zedo. Na umbom me pede ankran kra. We shia mo ha nyina rahunde. Sancha inda ya return wa in chansoto. Sancha ya return was on incha its desika kokowa. Jefufo near the ayuwom, near the sika koko atotodo. Samosha abinfo. Nanano, nam penyumfu ekukudama in the way shiamwaha. Na imbre Ebenezer. Menyankupon ziwe bodria. Ina into obiara wa hanmano atwi obatase. O Sunday say yeshe mpenyumfa. Huma beye insende ho. Ma ahene nso bi no. Yeze bere baba ye insende ho. Yeze atu henu kotodwom. Mo ochina bi yeze yane sa apem henu koko. Bra yenye china mpenyumfo onye fyew bia. Oh onye fyew bia. Onye ahomka bia. Onye ahwohwaho bia. Kwe mejina moa mpenyin repe one ho mfemfema kan za chiro abakosam okokrokwa embon asan akokọ abon kokokroko osuna intum infa wo insie antante enwehu ina prof ayer wo department werie ye chiro wizin aside duyet sampana isi asase biru hu wo fom wo ha mpoda da biara yum mboa ina dazimboa zizi wa win ase. Department of Applied Linguistics mekan show there dembre ochene kra ha haw owuram nsu no damara na abiri hono so hone kra ha haw ohwehwe Professor Benjamin Afful nizinda. Owo yehene bibiri mu achaza ampa. Prof, wo baby wo wode kekepe ina wo baby so ye twan danhwea wo baby fosla do odum ina wo baby so ye de onyina. Prof, wa ho brase wait what say ni nyina ro kire he ne day nyimpa sanyame dom wo nyimzi na nyansa na abra wo ho ase onyam wo wode ekomara mu school obrapa na no kwar obrapa so eja wo rokwan ampa jama umbo na adwuma jama wutirinkwa mpanyin day mo wasn't na wɔbɔ nti na ewiabere yɛne nyinara esi nkongua na yɛrebɔ wuzini za ayɛ yi ɛyɛ nyimpa nyinaa na Nyankopɔn ozi ho no dodam nanso hwɛ onyame a ɔyɛ kɛse na ɔfa nyimpa yɛ no kɛse a obiara ntum nyɛ no do akasesam no ayɛ wɔ kɛse ɔwɔ iye ejapa ento mpa ento atopa prof Messi ɔwɔ iye ejapa ento mpa ento atopa nambom iye ejapa iya papa amadachi inchirumba aka wo papa ye empanyin ne de se benyin biara bezi ye ana bokuna nyim wo abraboma ena owo oba obosi osita na oso mpa oso dai wakatadra ochira na ase onyam ho hwa de me na vida oye enkakra mpo a esa onanyungo oh one point some me na vida o Saturday professor adwumai on the phone no mo conference call one conference oboko workshop a oboko classroom nesa ni nyinara hene mami wa bonasen na so za tai wechi ebe ebodu da mpempendua me na vida ye twa wo mprose yesi ye ma wumbo o sanda madada waye woso ka ho mpanyene de ensompeyetia misha mbre dembre doctor osabarima kwesi atarisham ya owumpa inchawano battle achre de eye ekoa na ba ampa wan brasi nyinara achre me de nokwa achre de ekoa na fo ena homo gomo ho homo bra homo ase ma abo anoma nya abotar tunin chrefoa dado bobo so sesaw numba enya ko na fa inte yenya da no adensefo osaberma ekros mpiasare mansuentu masientu ekona osibrim ahwenze nananom se enya ekona fa enche nezri ambawiase o Sunday ahun na wowo abediasa zinyan abanyan mesin aranye nananom arensam wisenyi nana nyako abranoma anotsewa mekasa oyambra de esusom awo a level 200 communication students ebiri so won sabenkum ena nyimfa ya woza afobome bra jerefre obemfo okunyen nyansa buakwa nyansa ebunkam akantam nodo obemfo Joseph Afful momudre one born summer man momudo tutu bro yanjana tata oso also boko bowuse ma prof watch ready ono oye okakabin fa oye dwumazina ombre ibiri abrofo samono abrochi asentino ogonman nigeninara we are ready to listen prof kasa ludohanasi.
Vice Chancellor-elect, with your permission, I would like to stand on the protocol you have already established. I would first like to thank God for his immeasurable grace and mercy. I also appreciate the University management for offering me the opportunity to present this inaugural lecture. I'm highly honored to be the fourth inaugurant in my department, following Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Professor Lawrence K. Owusu-Ansah, and Professor Dora Francisca Edubuando. My presentation addresses 6 main issues. First, understanding key words and terms. Second, identifying the influences and interest in language use. Third, charting the academic path. Fourth, gaining a voice through my publications. Looking into the future is the fifth, and the last strand is highlighting my contributions. In this first strand of my presentation, I explain some underpinning key words and terms. The first is the inaugural lecture as an academic spoken genre. Acting Vice Chancellor, at the outset, I should like to say that there are 5 types of academic inaugural lectures, identified as first, the research-focused type, which gives an overview of contributions to a specific field, showcasing research contributions, methods, and future directions in the field of study. The second is the narrative reflective type, which often includes personal stories related to career development. The third type is the one that is tagged inspirational, and this addresses the broader implications of research on society. The fourth type of inaugural lecture is the strategic lecture, which focuses on the history, development, and future of a department, particularly if the inaugurant holds a headship position. And the fifth one is an entirely new subject that is discussed for the attention of the various publics. For the purpose of today's presentation, Acting Vice Chancellor and invited guest, I choose the reflective narrative form, usually referred to as the autoethnography. This is what I capture in the title of this presentation as a tale. Autoethnography can be recognized simply as a narrative, interspersed with reflections and subtle argumentation. It allows the writer or researcher to address himself or herself as a subject of a larger social or cultural inquiry, vis-a-vis evocative and revealing writing. Thus, it affords an author the space to express views and foreground constitutive dimensions that may be ordinarily be attenuated or even eliminated in conventional scientific discourse. In this way, I articulate my personal lived experience over the past 27 years in higher education. Although the autoethnographic approach in presenting inaugural lectures has been faulted for being potentially self-indulgent or lacking scientific rigor, I choose it on account of the fact that first, it humanizes the academic or the researcher, allowing me, therefore, to move beyond a seemingly dry, objective recitation of data and to present myself as a real person with successes, disclosures, and personal struggles, which you will find in my presentation very soon. Second, it is inclined towards enhancing audience or reader engagement, thereby capturing the audience's attention, empathy, and feelings. The third reason for my choice of a tale is that it allows me to use my own experiences as a lens to understand broader sociocultural and institutional context. Professor Che, the second major concept in this presentation is applied linguistics, which is captured in the tale as applied English linguist. In other words, I consider applied linguistics to be situated within a specific global language, English, which remains a key international language of scholarship. At the risk of being simplistic and as known to those with some interest in language studies, applied linguistics evokes two relatable terms or concepts, First, linguistics, and then theoretical linguistics. Linguistics means the scientific study of language. As its focus, theoretical linguistics investigates the fundamental nature, structure, and underlying rules of human language to develop theories and models that explain language competence, universality, and variation. In this sense, we can think of areas such as syntax, which refers to sentence structure, morphology, which means word formation, phonetics, phonology, which means speech sounds, semantics, which simply means meaning, and pragmatics, which means context. On the other hand, applied linguistics is devoted to applying theories, methods, and findings from theoretical linguistics to address language-related challenges in society. It is understandable to find such pertinent areas as second language teaching and pedagogy, forensic linguistics, translation, computational linguistics, among others. I agree with Halliday when he describes applied linguistics as a transdisciplinary field, which creates new forms of activities from existing disciplines. What is clear is that these activities are bound together by virtue of their preoccupation with matters related to language use. It is a reference to the second concept, applied linguistics, with its triumvirate elements of text, context, and meaning or function, which provides a broader terrain for my discussion today. Over the last 27 years, I've been eclectic in my approach to applied linguistics, having published in the following fields. 1, English for academic and publishing purposes with emphasis on academic writing, socionomastics, linguistic landscape, grammar of interpersonality and evaluation in academic and non-academic context, and lastly, research trends in English studies. In this presentation, however, I focus on only 2 of what I've just listed. My exhibition in Sam Jonah Library, which commenced on Monday, has sought to showcase my research in all the 5 areas that I've just mentioned. Now let me come to the term, a tale of 2 cities. I'm sure many of you have been wondering what I mean by that. I'm sorry I may have to disappoint some people. With your permission, Professor Chair, I now consider the term a tale of 2 cities in the title of my presentation. It easily evokes Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities, written in 1859, which is a historical English novel set between London and Paris, before and during the French Revolution, highlighting themes of resurrection, sacrifice, and social injustice. This tale contrasts the quiet life of London with the upheaval of Paris, emphasizing that love and self-sacrifice can triumph over hatred and social decay. For those who are familiar with this classical work, I'm sure you remember that famous quote in the opening line. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times, unquote. So the question is, why do I refer to 2 cities? Given that the word cities evokes areas such as geography, urban planning, machine, and the collectivity of humans, and the tendency towards complexity and modernism, I use it to mean the complex knowledge domains exemplified through the construction, dissemination, and evaluation of knowledge. Although scholars such as Thomas Kuhn, Bigland, Scadamelia, Beretta, Ken Highland, and many others provide different taxonomies and metaphors for classifying or grouping knowledge in the academy, I chose 2 cities for the purpose of this presentation, and this is where I'm sure some people will feel disappointed, as a symbolism rather, for the 2 selected areas in applied linguistics that are of interest to me in today's presentation. So unfortunately, my presentation has nothing to do with Paris or London. It has everything rather to do with the 2 areas that I want to talk about, English for academic and publishing purposes with emphasis on academic writing, and socio-onomastics. These, in my presentation, constitute the two cities that I'm talking about. First of all, let's talk about English for academic purposes. English for academic and publishing purposes represents a distinct field of study that emanated from in the early 1960s. Over the years, it has grown like all other disciplines. It focuses on how students, researchers, and scholars use the English language. Linguistics and rhetorical features such as stance, engagement markers, lexical bundles, syntactic complexity, and nominalization continue to attract attention in English for academic and publishing purposes. Further topics include disciplinary variation, academic vocabulary, and formulaic research methodologies, among others. Some approaches in EAPP include genre analysis, academic literacies, critical discourse analysis, social linguistics, and corpus linguistics. On the other hand, socio-onomastics derived from the mother field sociolinguistics emphasizes the naming and address practices that humans reflect and construct in their daily interactions at home, school, and workplace, among others. This is so ordinary that every day of our lives as humans, we address people. At home, you are likely to be addressing your children as Kofi, Ama, Mensa, or Manan. Socio-onomastics often overlaps with sociolinguistics, pragmatics, anthropology, and history to understand the full gamut and significance of names in human life. This means paying attention to both naming and address practices. In sociolinguistics in particular, address practices refer to the systematic ways speakers use language to designate their interlocutors during social interaction. These practices can be categorized as personal names, titles and honorifics, kinship terms, endearment terms, zero address terms, and pronouns. And these are influenced always by factors such as power and solidarity, context, and cultural values. I'll return later to these two selected areas, which I call in this presentation two cities. But for a moment, Prof. Chair, permit me to highlight the second major strand of my presentation, which is identifying influences and my interest in language use. Growing up at different times in two cities, Sekondi Takoradi and Cape Coast, I was influenced by some personalities. I'll first talk about the influence. I'm sure some of you remember Reader's Digest. He was also a fan of several Christian motivational literature. My father would often take me as a child along with him each time he visited his father, that is my grandpa, who was a musician and a bookshop manager, who lived 2 houses from our house in Bakano, Sekondi. My grandfather, Mr. John Benjamin Afful, was a band master for the singing band in the Sekondi Methodist Church. He had an organ at home, which was a huge source of attraction to me. This was later to influence me when I entered Sekondi College, popularly known as SECO, after passing the then common entrance examination in primary 6 at Agreki Primary at Bekechi. As I developed an interest in music, taught by Mr. E.C. Bilson, Jr. of blessed memory and of Western Melodics fame. In hindsight, I would say that it was the books in my grandfather's hall that had a stronger influence on me. Though I did not continue reading music as a subject in the secondary school, my abiding interest in it led me to a senior student in SECO by name Mr. Paul Kwekwa, who is currently in the USA, who taught me how to play the organ. During holidays, I would walk from Bakano to Sekondi, through the rails, Bakado to Ainkofi Krom, for my music lessons with Mr. Awatwe, using the organ in Ainkofi Krom Methodist Church. Another great influence was my class 6 teacher, Mr. Damson. I'm happy he's here. who persuaded my father to allow me to commence secondary education at age 12, after I had passed the common entrance examination. He would always encourage the class to read widely, and so walking from Bakano to the Sekendi Regional Library, close to the Anglican Church, was a joy to me. Now let me talk about Cape Coast. I had two maternal uncles, Mr. Matthias Kwesi Ayinsu and Mr. Emmanuel Mackay Ayinsu, who were accountants. Each time I came to Cape Coast for holidays and for Fetu Afeshe, under the supervision of Mr. Emmanuel Mackay Ayinsu, whom I called Uncle Kofi, I had to write essays for him to mark. His demand for clarity in thought, organization, and clear handwriting, and note I had introduced them to you as accountants. But they were the ones who encouraged me to read the abridged versions of Shakespeare and Chaucer. No wonder I chose the arts program in Form 3, offering me the opportunity to choose literature as one of my elective subjects for the GCE ordinary level and continuing with it at the sixth form. Mr. Benjamin Akon, I believe he's also here, a cousin and a former staff member of the library in UCC, was always available to assist me in my language and literature exercises while on holidays in Cape Coast, as I had then begun the secondary school. Prof. Chair, I now highlight the third strand of my presentation, that is, charting the academic path. In 1984, I got admission into the University of Cape Coast, having passed the GCE advanced level. This was an exciting moment in my life, as the surroundings of the university convinced me that I had a great future. Given my parental background, with my mom being a seamstress and my dad being a sawmill manager at then Sekendi Railway Corporation, known as LOCO, in those my father passed on just when I was preparing for the first year university examination, FUE, as it was popularly called then. My world came crashing down, and for moments, I thought that was the end of my academic journey. My academic performance in the second year greatly improved, and surprisingly, I was selected as a major student by the Department of English. Throughout the third and fourth years of the BA program, my teachers, namely Professor Nana Jenopoku-Adjuman, Professor Kojo Opoku-Adjuman, Dr. John Enumsaki, Professor Nafale Sekufio of blessed memory, Professor Lawrence Ousansa, Mr. Jeffrey A.K. Gogovi, and Mr. Issa made deep impressions on me. After mentioning Gogovi, I know what you are thinking about. Even deeper were the impressions I had of the Vice Chancellor at the time, Professor Kwamna Dixon, a geographer who had an Oxford accent, and Dr. Saki, who spoke with almost a native English accent, though a pure Gan. As a young, impressionable student, I desired to speak like both. I doubt whether I succeeded in speaking like them. An important aspect of this stage of my becoming, even at the undergraduate level, was the opportunity that the department provided for me to acquire balanced knowledge of the two cities. Here, I mean language and literature, both aspects of English. As required, though, I chose language, implying that I had to undertake my undergraduate research in language studies. The title of my undergraduate research was The Use of Some Troublesome English Words, Often Encountered by Educated Ghanaians, under the supervision of the then dreaded Mr. Gogovi. I said it. This research was specifically in the area of lexicosemantics. Looking back, I wondered how I could work with Mr. Gogovi for all the reasons that I'm sure you are thinking of. I wondered how I could work with him and become his darling boy. Although I constantly heard effusions and vituperations of unpleasant comments from other students that suggested that Mr. Gogovi was a monster and a hard taskmaster. But hey, thank you, Mr. Gogovi, wherever you are. I spoke with him 2 weeks ago, trying to get him to be here. Unfortunately, he's not here because of age. But thank you, Mr. Gogovi, for the rigor you took me through and the values you inculcated in me. I completed the first degree in 1988 with a bungalow awaiting me at Wesley Girls High School in Cape Coast, where I met former Vice Chancellor, then Mr. Gatiampia, my senior at the undergraduate level. You know, we had a nickname for each other then. I won't tell you what these nicknames are. At Wesley Girls, I taught both language and literature. My involvement with English language education at the secondary school continued for some years at Miriba Secondary School and University of Cape Coast Practice Senior High School, until upon reflection, I decided to enroll in a master's program that had just commenced at the Department of English, UCC. We were the second batch. But I'll tell you more about the master's program. I commenced my MPhil program English language in 1995, reading English courses such as semantics under Dr. Saki, grammar under the dreaded Mr. Gogovi, discourse analysis under Professor Owusu-Ansah, and social linguistics under the longest ever serving lecturer in the Department of English, Professor Kofi Edu-Yankson of blessed memory, allowing me then to acquire the depth and breadth of knowledge of these areas. It is worthy of note that at the master's level, I had only 2 mates. Oh, you don't want to clap for me? These were J.Y. Sechibedu, currently also a professor and an accomplished Ghanaian church musician of considerable repute, organist and composer, and Professor Dora Francisca Edubwando, a former Pro-Vice Chancellor of UCC and Ghana's current High Commissioner to Canada. Interestingly, this entire class, as you can see, has produced professors, a feat I believe may be difficult for many former mates of one class to accomplish. Well, sorry, you don't have to envy us. The days spent under my MPhil lectures were difficult, to say the least, but impactful, as we had to make presentations almost every week because we were only 3. So you make a presentation this week, the next week you have to make another one. Professor Yangson's course, Social Linguistics, particularly attracted my attention. At the end of the first meeting with the professor in class, I decided to undertake my MPhil research in socio-onomastics, precisely address terms in 3 speech communities in Cape Coast, namely Apiuska, Amauma, and University of Cape Coast. This MPhil research explored the influence of urbanism on the use of address terms across the 3 mentioned speech communities. After completing the MPhil program, I was recruited as an assistant lecturer in the department. It was clear at this point that the PhD was not optional, but mandatory, if I were to progress in my chosen career. Several applications for admission and funding in native English-speaking settings like the UK, the USA, Canada, and Australia to pursue further studies of the English language proved futile, until I met Miss Alfreda Esi Apre, a friend from Sekendi. There she is. I had taught her at the undergraduate level. She told me she had earlier studied applied linguistics and TESOL in Singapore under the aegis of a Commonwealth Award, and therefore I could consider National University of Singapore, NUS for short. Though I initially hesitated, because I thought that Singapore was as a Commonwealth country as Ghana, so there was no need going there to study English. But eventually, I obliged, with encouragement from my supervisors, Professor Yankson and Professor Owusu-Ansah. I began my doctoral studies at Singapore's premier university, National University of Singapore, NUS, on 2nd January 2002. In my first year at NUS, I took courses including measurement and evaluation, theory and practice of writing, advanced grammar, and research methods. In fact, it was in advanced grammar taught by Professor K. O'Halloran that I got introduced to systemic functional linguistics, SFL for short, which was taught in a language laboratory with lots of practice in the application of software to analyze text. But this was new and challenging for me because I had not had that opportunity at UCC. I started taking interest in the work of Francis Christie and Jim Martin. The handling of theory and practice of writing by Professor Paul Bruthio, an American of French origin, deepened my interest in general composition, professional communication, discourse analysis, and rhetoric, as he introduced the class to writing scholars such as Ruth Spark, Patricia Basil, Charles Bazeman, among others. My explicit interest in English for academic and publishing purpose was triggered by Professor Desmond Allison, a towering academic of Scottish extraction. My doctoral education at NUS was marked by further interesting experiences. I soon found out that I was the sole black person in my PhD class and other classes I joined, which made me initially very, very uncomfortable. My classes were truly multilingual, with students and lecturers coming from different parts of the world, namely the USA, the UK, South Korea, North Korea, Pakistan, Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia, with the attendant different English accents, which obviously had implications for intelligibility, acceptability, and tolerability. Soon, I met a few Africans on campus, such as Umar Idrusu, a Ghanaian PhD economics student, Archibald, a Nigerian building and construction PhD student, Raphael, a Nigerian PhD philosophy student, Edward Bannerman Wood, I'm not sure whether he's here, but a Ghanaian MA social welfare student I met, Professor Ofori, a Ghanaian building and construction lecturer, Professor Emmanuel Kunle, a Nigerian engineering lecturer, and Professor Alex Mutebe, a Ugandan international relations lecturer. Oh yes, I remember Bill too, a Ghanaian computer analyst who worked with a company in Singapore. These individuals provided the support I needed. It is worth remembering how I benefited from NUS funding, of my attendance at separate conferences each year in Cambridge University, Oregon University, Sydney University, and RELC in Singapore. I'm thankful to NUS for this generous gesture. With my interest in how people use language expressed in my pre-doctoral research, I explored disciplinary rhetoric in the examination essays of Ghanaian undergraduate students in English studies, sociology, and zoology, using Swill's ESP genre theory in my PhD research. This was in the broad area of English for academic purposes. I completed the PhD in August 2006 under the able supervision of Professor Sunita and Abraham. My PhD thesis defense remains memorable to me because I spent only 15 minutes presenting my 350-page thesis, although the entire session lasted 3 hours, with my principal supervisor remaining silent throughout the period, as expected by the university's rules. The thesis defense seemed to me more inquisitorial rather than celebratory. Well, that's my view. Perhaps an institutional difference. Having completed the doctoral program, I turned my attention to returning to UCC. Although I had to accept a postdoctoral fellowship at the reputable University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I must say that I got into trouble with the University of Cape Coast when I accepted that. I worked under the mentorship of the well-known critical pedagogue, Professor Hilary Janks. Together, we explore the interface between discourse analysis and postgraduate pedagogy, using PhD theses from 3 disciplines as data. And these were sociology, wildlife and entomology, and literature. My PhD thesis and postdoctoral experiences taught me the value of recognizing disciplinary variation in the academy as a useful contextual variable for research in English for academic and publishing purposes. I returned to UCC in September 2007. I'm not sure it was so much the love of UCC, but I returned. And in December 2007, witnessed the painful demise of my mom. Ever since, I've been in Ghana with occasional trips outside Ghana for various academic and professional purposes. I missed my sabbatical because of COVID-19, as plans were far advanced for me to be in China, having laid the foundation in my earlier 2 visits. Thank you. In the first round of the presentation, Professor Chair, and ladies and gentlemen, I shall look at my research efforts from the 2 cities: English for academic and publishing purposes, and socio-onomastics. First, English for academic purposes. In the last 27 years, I have been involved in APP research focusing on expert writing, which involves research articles, first scripts, the writing of textbooks, among others. But I've also been interested in novice writing. Examples of such forms of writing include research proposal, the thesis, examination essays, and dissertation, among others. I've also been interested in professional or pedagogic writing, especially biodata, letter of recommendation, and course outlines. Over the years, I've considered the macro and micro aspects of these written genres. For the purpose of this presentation, I highlight a few of such. I have frequently used Swale's ESP move analysis to analyze the schematic structure of written academic genres. Specific genres studied include the research article, examination essay, and thesis or dissertation, part genres such as undergraduate and postgraduate dissertation, acknowledgements, literature review, reference list, research article, conference titles, as well as occluded genres such as thesis assessment reports, grant recommendation letters or letters of support, and personal statements. These works have allowed me to examine their rhetorical structures, linguistic features, as against the backdrop of disciplinary variation. Studies of the research article, which is recognized as the key mode of scholarly communication in academia, led me to explore rhetorical features such as the titles of research articles, titles of conference proceedings, and research article abstracts. In fact, following studies that I had conducted on research article titles with one of my students up here, and with another student who is here, Dr. Koto, and with Ankuma and Mienlaru, I received an invitation from some Indonesian researchers to participate in a project. This resulted in a 2024 paper titled Linguistic Characteristics of Research Article Titles in National and International ELT Journals. This study filled a gap by investigating the average text length and syntactic structure of 120 research article titles based on research design. The findings from the study contributed to the scholarship on the contrastive aspect of titling practices in English for publishing purposes. Further, my research on reference lists in postgraduate thesis focused on the structural and rhetorical conventions used by doctoral students in a South African university. I highlight how disciplinary communities influence the organization, labeling, and location of these reference lists. In a cross-disciplinary study on doctoral thesis, I observed that reference lists are not merely administrative addenda, but also rhetorically significant sections that reflect disciplinary norms and practices. In a paper titled The Politics of Citation, an analysis of doctoral theses across disciplines, a paper I co-authored with my postdoctoral mentor, Professor Hilary Janks, I also argued that the reference list or bibliography for doctoral students constitutes a rhetorical site for the enactment of politics due to students' alliances and misalliances in their selection of scholars and researchers. This can be found in a paper that was published in 2013 with Janks. I also analyzed how examiners use positive feedback in examination reports to validate students' work, particularly in the introduction and methodology chapters. I also collaborated with a mentee and now a PhD holder, Gabriel Tete, to also investigate the form of examiner comments in a study of 100 examination reports, specifically showing how they critique students' knowledge of literature and their ability to justify theoretical frameworks. An early but significant portion of my work over the years critiqued the communicative skills curricula in Ghanaian universities, arguing for a shift from general remediation to discipline-specific writing. I still hold the view that EAP curricula in Ghanaian universities must evince a balance between general and discipline-specific writing, while incorporating genre-based instruction to facilitate student enculturation into the university. Influenced by the course I took during my doctoral studies, that is Theory and Practice of Writing, back in UCC, I argued for the institutionalization of academic writing course as a way to assist graduate students in acquiring academic literacy skills and writing quality theses. My joint research with some mentees in 2022 on supervisors' perceptions on the writing of postgraduate literature review indicated that there were major student challenges in criticality, synthesizing, referencing, and language use. Furthermore, I have utilized autoethnographic approaches to explore doctoral writing of two key genres, that is, the research proposal and the thesis. Finally, my work in English for academic purposes addresses the role of academic editors and the linguistic challenges faced by researchers when trying to publish in international journals. Other professional journals I focus on include the lecturer's biographical statement submitted to a first grade. And here, I explore the identity of scholars in their biodata attached to this journal. I now come to socionomastics. I have extensively researched either single-handedly or collaboratively or through supervised research on naming and address practices in Ghana, focusing on academic settings and account cultural context. My work often utilizes ethnographic and interactional sociolinguistic frameworks to analyze how individuals strategically navigate interpersonal relationships through varied address forms and naming practices. The following are some specific illustrative works. In my foundational study on address terms among university students, I identified three major categories of address forms used among Ghanaian undergraduate students. These were personal names, descriptive terms, and titles, which serve as idiolects to define the student community and allow them to express multiple evolving identities. In a co-authored work with McNulty, one of my mentees, and currently an assistant professor in Lingnan University in Hong Kong, I analyzed terms of endearment like sweetie pie among students, characterizing them as markers of innovation and conviviality. Yet another research highlights how gendered identities influence the choice of address forms, noting considerable variation in how male and female students address one another and their faculty. In a joint research titled When Sir and Madam Are Not, address terms and reference terms students use for faculty in a Ghanaian university, with Dr. Min Laru, a former MPhil student and now a senior lecturer in the Department of English, I examined how students address their lecturers in class and how they use different reference terms for these same lecturers when the lecturers leave the class. I'm not sure whether I have any nickname from any of the students. I only know about Prof and Sir. I believe I don't have any other name apart from this. But this paper proved, as I have indicated from the title, that in class, when students refer to their professors, they refer to them, if male, as sir, if female, as madam. But when the lecturers leave, only God knows the names they give them. I'm aware that I have some names, but I won't share them with you. These sets of address and reference terms constitute symbols of both domination and resistance to academic authority. In a very recent co-published study with Wisdom, one of my mentees and a PhD student in UCC, I explored how educated Ghanaian couples address each other in everyday interaction. We identified 6 main address forms: endearment terms, first names, clipped names, descriptive phrases, titles, and zero address terms. The study demonstrates that address terms among couples are not merely labels, but important sociolinguistic resources through which couples express love, negotiate respect, and reflect both tradition and modernity in the Ghanaian society. Within the Akan ethno-linguistic landscape, address practices are dictated by non-linguistic variables such as age, gender, social status, and the relationship between interactants. Here, work on Akan non-kinship terms highlights how tradition and modernity blend in post-colonial Ghana. My research extends to also specialized communities of practice, such as male basketball players, who use ethnic-related terms, descriptive epithets, personal names, and nicknames to build solidarity and to express a distinct group identity. My broader onomastic work includes exploration of church names in Ghana. My work with Dr. Osei Yawakoto on names in churches reveals the use of global liturgical languages such as Greek, Hebrew, and Latin, and local languages such as English, and other indigenous languages. A closely related study on church names also shows how names are used for identity construction. Expanding my research into linguistic landscape, that is the visibility of language, on public signs and in commercial naming, I have investigated the names of hotels in Accra with a mentee and a PhD student in Hong Kong, noting how these names serve as semiotic tools that index urbanism and globalization while maintaining local cultural relevance. Bequin's MPhil thesis, part of which is to be published soon, investigates the public signs in UCC, showing a range of communicative functions. those that are regulatory, those that are referential, and those that are aesthetic. Based on the 27 years of research conducted in these two cities, English for academic and publishing purposes with emphasis on academic writing and socio-onomastics, Prof. Che, ladies and gentlemen, I now take a quick but brief peep into the future as the fifth strand of today's presentation, which tells you that I'm about to end my presentation. My research on English for academic and publishing purposes, utilizing mainly genre analysis ranging from letters of recommendation to undergraduate dissertation acknowledgements and research article titles, highlights the tension between the push for international publishing standards and the contextual sociolinguistic realities of Ghanaian scholars. Scholars and students in Ghana are primarily non-native speakers of English, but write in a system where English is the sole official language and medium of instruction. Also, a key issue from my research is the institutional foundational courses at Ghanaian universities, such as UCC's Communicative Skills Program and other similar programs elsewhere, which often heavily emphasizes remediation, leading to a gap between what students need for discipline-specific context and what is taught. Given the scenario painted of the English for academic and publishing purposes situation in Ghana, as presented in my research over the last 27 years, I offer the following recommendations for higher education, targeting both learners and experts. First, I recommend that foundational writing programs in Ghanaian universities be reviewed and redesigned. In UCC and several other public universities where we have communicative skills or use of English and academic writing, there must be a curricular shift away from remediation toward discipline-specific orientation, combined with technology-based and critical-based pedagogy to address modern academic needs. Second, for the purpose of capacity building and staff retraining, tertiary educational institutions should institutionalize specialized retraining for EAP instructors and postgraduate thesis supervisors to better align with global and local EAPP trends. To ensure targeted staff development, universities and other stakeholders must provide internal funding and specialized training for junior faculty and doctoral students, focusing on international publishing literacy, citation practices, and genre conventions to improve global academic visibility. The academic writing for graduate students course in UCC, I believe, should be reviewed in terms of its objectives, pedagogy, and material development. I want to believe that this started in 2017. As far as I'm concerned, no review has taken place. For instance, in terms of pedagogy, workshops geared towards promoting genre awareness in pedagogy could be employed by lecturers to explicitly teach textual, rhetorical, and linguistic features, such as metadiscourse, hedging, and evaluative lenses, so doctoral students especially can transition smoothly into international publishing spaces. Other universities in Ghana should consider introducing postgraduate writing courses. As far as I'm concerned, it is only UCC that has an academic writing course for postgraduate students. And it is my conviction that all other public universities in Ghana will need to introduce academic writing course for their postgraduate students. Such courses must embed English for academic purposes and publishing purposes models into the coursework. Indeed, implementing specialized English for publishing purposes and graduate writing courses is essential to boost the global visibility and research output of Ghanaian universities, whether public or private. Now let me come to socio-onomastics. My lecture on socio-onomastic, that is address and naming practices in Ghana, reveals how naming and address practices reflect social identity, power dynamics, and cultural values in diverse domains, like spousal relationships, sports, and academia. While English serves as the official medium of instruction and administration in Ghana, communication is highly localized. Naming conventions and address practices shape interpersonal interactions across the country. Misunderstanding of these context-specific practices can lead to social friction or ineffective cross-cultural communication. Based on these findings, therefore, I offer some policy implication and strategic recommendations. First of all, I believe that recognizing informal address markers and other appropriate address practices can help both academic institutions and other organizations to improve workplace cohesion and employee motivation. Secondly, government agencies, civil societies, and corporate institutions should consider establishing communication policies that validate Ghanaian indigenous forms of address practices to promote cultural pride and respect. The ministries of tourism or arts and culture, perhaps alongside the National Commission on Culture, should establish frameworks to protect and promote local naming practices. This will preserve understudied local languages and keep indigenous histories alive. As well, some ministries, such as the ministries in charge of local government or decentralization and rural development, should enforce guidelines for the naming of public spaces, streets, and institutions. And such naming should strike a balance, in my view, between preserving national heritage and accommodating modern, urban, and global functions. Lastly, stakeholders such as researchers and universities should mentor budding researchers, with government agencies being encouraged to fund further sociolinguistic research in address practices and naming practices across various underrepresented Ghanaian ethno-linguistic communities and demographics to inform educational curricula and practices. Professor Chair, a summary of my contributions are in the inaugural brochure, which I'm sure everybody has. However, with your permission, I would like to mention a few here as part of the last strand of my presentation. I first start with research, followed by teaching, professional development, and service. My research in the field of English for academic and publishing purposes typically highlights my contribution to helping non-native English speakers overcome barriers to writing and publishing in high-impact journals, which are approximately 90% dominated by English. Research into the specific, often unspoken rules of academic writing helps to develop and teach courses that improve both the linguistic and lexico-semantic, as well as rhetorical and social aspects of thesis writing and writing for publication. Concerning socio-onomastics, my contributions highlighted in the aforementioned publications focus on bridging the gap between traditional onomastic studies with sociolinguistic, pragmatic, and ethnographic methods to show how naming and address practices reflect social structures, cultural identity, and power dynamics. My work often bridges the gap between historical onomastics and contemporary sociolinguistic trends. I believe that secondly, I have showcased University of Cape Coast in various international and domestic forums and platforms, as selectively shown. I have been a facilitator of seminars and keynote speakers for Linguistics Association of Ghana. I have been a member of discipline-specific associations, including Linguistics Association of Ghana and many other associations which you have in the brochure. I've also been a presenter at many conferences in many countries such as China, Sweden, the Netherlands, South Africa, Australia, the UK, the USA, and Singapore. Finally, I think that you can find my research visibility in statistical terms at the following links. I wonder whether that can be shown. But if that cannot be shown, then I'll just move on to teaching. In the area of teaching, I have contributed to the teaching and learning of courses in English, communicative skills, and Ghanaian languages and linguistics in the University of Cape Coast in the last 27 years. I have supervised and examined students' theses and projects, and I'm sure that the Vice Chancellor-elect alluded to this. In terms of professional development, I have developed the capacity of several students and staff members in and outside the Department of English, in and outside University of Cape Coast, some of whom have become professors, associate professors, senior lecturers, and lecturers. In terms of service, I have served the University of Cape Coast in various capacities as a 2-term head of Department of English, Vice Dean of School of Graduate Studies, Dean of Faculty of Arts, and served on boards and committees in and outside University of Cape Coast as chairman and member, and have served as chairman and member of teams for affiliation and accreditation in private and public universities in Ghana. I also introduced a new course, Genre Studies, in the Department of English, and contributed greatly in the establishment of a new department in the University of Cape Coast, Department of Communication Studies. And I'm happy that I was its first head of department. I was also instrumental in the introduction of academic writing as a mandatory course for research students at the postgraduate level in the University of Cape Coast in 2017. Oh, I thought you would clap for me. At various levels in the university, departmental, faculty, and college, I have assisted in the introduction and review of programs and courses. As I end this presentation, Chair, ladies and gentlemen, I do notice myself a kind of coherence, though not necessarily a linear progression of events that I have narrated. But on one hand, I see a sustained effort on my part to map the discoursal encoding of the English for academic and publishing purposes and how this influences and is influenced by disciplinarity and general considerations. And on the other hand, the socio-pragmatics of address terms and naming practices in various contexts. These might become clearer, ladies and gentlemen, if you choose to be curious and kind enough to read some of my work. What is clear to me is that the academic journey of becoming is not only full of learning, excitement, discovery, and achievement, but also fears, anxieties, disclosures, and uncertainties. Thank you, wonderful audience, for listening to my story, a tale of two cities, the case of an applied English linguist.
Let's kindly applaud him whilst he makes his way to take his seat. Professor Afful will be back to give his acknowledgements. Before that, we'll take a musical interlude from the Department of Music. Let's welcome Betty Newton.
So the song is titled When You Nyam Ne Asida by a friend, Prof. Yausechibedu to Prof. Afful.
Nyasida Nafatawo Nyamya Wutyasina Wuntisado You Tits Nini Nyamini Wo Dofu Domfu Yem Yefo Tumfo Asidanya Yewodida Ntonton Nishira Yewodida Hallelujah Tumfwe Hallelujah Sruhin Waye Asida nyayi yewudida Ntonton inshira yewudida Hallelujah tumfwe Hallelujah Sruhin wairin sadon Frisanten bianinara Woye no kwafu wadininamo Wabasa yedru mawombada Wona wotrunya sondri danina Asida yewodida Ntonton nishira yewodida Hallelujah tumfwe Hallelujah Sruhin wairin sadon Asida yewodida Ntonton nishira yewodida Hallelujah tumfwe Hallelujah Sruhin wairin sadon Jehovah Adonai Eradipa Jehovah Rapha Yen Yarisafo Jehovah Shalom Yen Asomji Kron Nyami Bwade Nyankopon Asida yewodida Ntonton nishira yewodida Hallelujah tumfwe Hallelujah Sruhin wairin sadon Asidanya yewodida Ntonton nishira yewodida Hallelujah tumfwe Hallelujah Sruhin wairin sadon
A round of applause again for Betty Newton and Mr. Saki from the Department of Music here at the University of Cape Coast. Now, through his journey towards becoming, from Sekondi Takoradi through to Cape Coast, through the walls of Seku and Apam Senior High School, to the University of Cape Coast, to Singapore, coming back to the University of Cape Coast, Professor Afful has the real opportunity this afternoon to say thank you to each and everyone who has supported this course, culminating to him delivering his inaugural lecture. Let's welcome him again on stage as he gives acknowledgements. Let the applause flow whilst he makes his way up.
Once again, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Vice Chancellor-elect, I would like to stand on the protocols already established to make the following acknowledgements. First, it is appropriate that while I have talked about the footprints on my mind from my reading and research experience, I also acknowledge the footprints made by all persons whom I've encountered in this journey. For some 27 years in teaching at the University of Cape Coast, God has been my guide and sustainer. I stand here today as a testimony to his sustaining and ever-abiding grace. Is Mr. Saki here? Don't know whether you can help me. So, Mathematics book 80. 80. Yeah, just please. Just please. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. That's an expression of my gratitude to God. I appreciate the management of the University of Cape Coast under the current leadership of the Pro-Vice Chancellor and Acting Vice Chancellor, Professor Heto, Mr. Gideon Abike, Registrar and former neighbor George Amfontre, the University Director of Finance, Acting Director of Finance, and the University Librarian, Dr. Kobler. I profoundly appreciate my parents, late Mr. J.B. Afful of the Abeka Wood, Elmina Takradi family, who taught me the value of education and hard work, and Mrs. Sarah Afful of the Ayinsu family from Ntongodo, Tamisase in Cape Coast. My loving mother, who was the epitome of sacrifice, perseverance, and selflessness. How I wish both of them were alive to see this day. So with your permission, Vice Chancellor-elect, I dedicate the lecture to their memory. I appreciate all my primary school teachers who assisted me to climb the educational ladder. Notably, Ms. Adelina Amankwa, I understand she's passed on, but Mr. Damson, I believe, is here. Mr. Damson, if you're here, can you stand up? That's my class 6 teacher. He's still handsome. When my dad, on receiving the news that I had passed the common entrance, thought that I was too young to go to the secondary school. In fact, he had told me that I was not going, because if I went to the secondary school, I would become a ruffian. He was afraid that I would come back speaking pidgin English. In fact, it was the reason why, even when my 3 daughters dare me to a competition involving pidgin English, I'm not able to speak pidgin English. And my 3 girls simply laugh at me because Dad cannot speak pidgin English. And it was because of the fear and regard that I had for my dad, who warned me against, coming back to the house speaking pidgin English. But it was Mr. Damson who came to my house and convinced my dad that even though I was young, he should allow me to go to SECO, the secondary school. So, Mr. Damson, thank you very much. I thank Mr. Sampare, currently a chief at Senior Breku. I once met him, I think about 5 years ago. I don't know where he is now. And Mr. Wayu, whose administration at Apam Secondary School during my 6th form education made a huge impact on me. I equally acknowledge my teachers in the University of Cape Coast, National University of Singapore, and the University of Witwatersrand, Johannesburg, South Africa. You all presented different slices of life from which I selected what was needed to build my personality and to construct my academic journey. In particular, I would like to thank then Dr. Usansa, though a language scholar, who deepened my interest in canonical English literature. I cannot forget his insistence that I get my punctuation right in the final copy of my MPhil thesis. I remember Dr. Saki, whose powerful cadences, metrical patterns, and prosodic features, while he read poems in his English poetry, metaphysical poetry, romantic poetry, and modern poetry lessons. I cannot thank you more, Professor Youngson, of blessed memory, for igniting my interest in social linguistics, and Mr. Gogovi, who taught me the values of hard work, clarity of thought, and I'm sure many of you will like the word I'm going to use, and meticulousness in his grammar classes and in the supervision of my undergraduate dissertation. I also thank you, Professor Sunita and Abraham, who happens to have been my principal supervisor. This is Professor Sunita and Abraham, who was my principal supervisor, and Professor Hilary Janks, who taught me the value of all-inclusive language in writing. That is Professor Hilary Janks in the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, South Africa. I also thank Professor Paul Bruthio, whose theory and practice writing lectures alerted me to the politics of writing in general and the politics and rhetoric of English punctuation. I'm grateful to Professor Desmond Allison, who triggered my interest in English for academic and publishing purposes. My years of teaching in this university have led to the raising of an academic family that has lovingly made me its leader, and I'm grateful. The devotion of the members of this family is humbling. I have interacted with them either as official supervisees or as formal and informal mentees or research collaborators. The list cannot be exhausted here, but I can mention a few. I'm delighted to know that the first PhD student I graduated has recently become a full professor. If he's here, can we see him? Professor Kudom Jesse. There he is. That's my first PhD student who has graduated long ago and recently, I think a few months ago, became a full professor. I can recall another high-profile mentee, Professor Eric Upokumensa. If you can rise up for us to see you. That's the current Vice Chancellor of UNIMAC. The PhD students I've graduated over the years include, I wish they can stand up so you see them. They include Dr. Osei Wakoto. There he is. Senior lecturer at K University and president of Ghana Name Society. Dr. Kwesi Safuedu, senior lecturer at K University, who sent me a WhatsApp message that he's unable to make it. Dr. Rita Chumesi, where are you? There she is. Senior lecturer at Department of Communication Studies. Dr. Dorcas Slip. Is she here? Okay, thank you. Dr. Dorothy Ademchi Hayford, headmistress of Agri Memorial Senior High School. Is she here? Okay. Dr. Francis Tabri. Dr. Wilson Jr. Yes, thank you. Dr. Paul Hezwa. He's not here. And Dr. Gepti Anani. Okay. Other mentees are Dr. Elijah Iwan and Nancy Nkansa, both at Legon. Dr. Benjamin Amakwahin. Dr. Che. And Mr. Jesse at UNIMAC. The list of my academic aspirants is inexhaustible as it continues to grow. These include those pursuing further studies outside and those in Ghana. Permit me to just mention a few ones in a very informal manner. First, my PhD students, Mina Koka, Eric Kenchi, Kofi Vifa, Obed. Obed, are you here? Eben, Mohammed, Buahima, Calvis, Betty, Antoinette. The MPhil students include Suleimana, Tina. Tina, are you here? Tina, headmistress, Antaman Senior Girls High. Okay. Charles, Priscilla, Kwanzaa, where are you? Yes, Priscilla, because you promised that you will be here. But you are lucky you have presented your thesis and defended. I'm also glad to mention others who are who studied their MPhil here, but who are furthering their PhD outside. These include Abaglo, Dr. Mark Nati, Dr. Gabriel Tete, and then we have Emmanuel Mensah Bonsu, and Michael Kaji. I think Michael Kaji, I've seen Michael Kaji around. Michael, are you here? Yes, he's in Hong Kong, but he's here to collect data. I'm so happy seeing you here. They have all provided a needed platform for this family celebration today. I'm also grateful, and I don't take for granted the postgraduate research students and course representatives from the School of Physical Sciences, School for Development Studies, School of Biomedical Sciences, School of Business, Faculty of Arts, and School of Nursing and Midwifery, who have provided me the platform to impart my knowledge in academic writing. I'm grateful to all students from these schools. In fact, I'm grateful for the invitations that come to me every year from the vice deans of these schools and faculties. In my academic journey, I've also built relationships with friends and colleagues in other campuses. These institutions can be perceived as my second homes. These relationships have been developed due to any of the following factors: external thesis examination, external assessment of promotion papers, conferences, supervision, and other short visits. Among these institutions are KNUST, Legon, UEW, Christian Science College, University of Witwatersrand, Vrij University in Amsterdam, Henan City in China, Cambridge University, Oregon University, Ibadan University, Siani Technical University. And I'm excited to mention professors whom I have worked with, such as the Vice Chancellor of Legon, Professor Abam Fapia, Professor Gordon Adika, Professor Akin Lapari, Professor Jemima Anderson, Professor Usam, Professor Sai, Professor Redu, Professor Amuzu, Professor Charles Mafu, Professor Fufulumote, Professor Patricia Jima, Professor Sechibedu, Professor Atinton, Professor Umori, Professor Babatunde, Professor Brinkra, Dr. Sanka, Dr. Peter Arthur, Dr. Philomena Ochasuyabwa. These are colleagues from other universities I've worked with who have all helped to shape my perspective as an intellectual. Now to Faculty of Arts, UCC. I appreciate all the deans who have served in the Faculty of Arts since I became a faculty member. Professor Nane Jinopukojman, Professor Osei of blessed memory, Professor Owusu Ansah, Professor Osei Kwatin, and the current dean, Professor Safo Kantanka. Thank you all for the support that you gave and continue to give me. I thank the entire Faculty of Arts for the opportunities given me through colloquia, conferences, lecture series, and its faculty journals, Drumspeak and Asemka, to grow. I cannot forget such senior professors as Professor Amwa, Professor Kofi, and Professor Bruchum. But there's something I need to say about Professor Bruchum. When I was growing up as an undergraduate student, I literally feared Professor Bruchum. At the old site, his appearance always scared me. Then I started the masters. Then all of a sudden, I realized that Professor Bruchum was showing interest in me. I was wondering, Professor Bruchum taking the initiative to always ask, "Young man, how are you?" The first time he greeted me and asked me that question, I wondered whether he had not made a mistake. But no, he had not made a mistake, because he was constantly coming to the Department of English because of his two friends, Professor Nane Jinopukojman and Professor Kujo Opukojman. And then I started the masters. I was to defend my thesis. I had been attending faculty lectures and had witnessed how sometimes aggressive Professor Bruchum can be when even making his comments. And so my prayer was that at my MPhil thesis, he will not be there. I don't know whether that day when I prayed, God didn't answer my prayer. Just when everything was over, and the chairperson was going to round off. I don't know what happened. He asked, is there any senior member who wants to ask a question? Professor Brichum had just entered. In fact, he was late. I thought that because he was late, excuse me, say he was going to shut up. But he was the only one who raised a hand, and the chair had to allow him to ask his question. Oh, Professor Brichum. Honestly, when he asked the question, truth be told, I couldn't answer his question. But ever since, I have valued his friendship. Each time he meets me as a junior colleague, we would talk about academia and how we can make progress. Professor Brichum, thank you very much wherever you are. Is he here? I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I appreciate all my colleagues in the departments of French and Ghanaian languages and linguistics in the University of Cape Coast for the high quality of interaction and collaboration that have built my academic personality. I would like to mention a name that many of you would wonder how I got to know this person. This is Professor Mansapra from the Faculty of Social Sciences, from the Department of Sociology. When I finished my PhD coursework, I had to come back to Ghana to collect data. Originally, my work was to focus on 3 disciplines: economics, English, and zoology. I went to the Department of Economics. The head of department at the time was, I think, Dr. Vijay. I believe he's passed on. He didn't allow me. He told me that examination scripts were, security materials. In spite of all that I said, including a letter from my university, National University of Singapore, he wouldn't allow. So I had to get back to my supervisor, Professor Sunita and Abraham. And she asked, do you have a department that is devoted to the teaching and learning of sociology? I said, yes. Okay. Then, given the framework you are using, can you go to the department and rather collect data from that department? That's when I had to see Professor Mansapra, who was then the head of department. But it wasn't going to be easy for me to approach it. Somehow, some of the things that I had heard about her, this university, it was so difficult approaching her. And of course, her own personality itself was also another issue. So how was I going to meet Professor Mansapra? Well, being a man, I had to muster courage. I eventually went to meet her. In fact, I was surprised the kind of welcome she gave me. It was at that point that I learned one critical lesson in life. Never pass any judgment on any person until you've met that person. Back in Singapore, I was constantly receiving emails from Professor Mansapra, who was not from my faculty, always asking how I was doing. And yet I had heard several negative and terrible things about Professor Mansapra. So I'm grateful to Professor Mansapra for her support. But she taught me one great lesson, which I've just shared with you. Now, my Department of English. I thank past members of the department, Professor Youngson of blessed memory, Professor Owusu Ansah, Professor Nana Gino Pokwajuman, Mr. Isel, Professor Kujwajuman, Mr. Gogovi, for their mentorship and their belief in me. I thank Professor Francisca Edubando, my MPhil mate and friend, and Dr. Akon, my former office mate and confidant. I appreciate the current head of Department of English, Professor Musa Traore. I'm grateful to colleagues in the department, such as Professor Safos of Kantanka, Professor Rogers Asempesa, Professor Nkansa, who is not here, but sent me a word this morning, Dr. Amin Lara, who is also not here, but who sent me a word, Dr. Abasam, Dr. Lina Aziaku, Frank Mesa, Dr. Oponaji, Dr. Nsoa Ocher, Dr. Emisa Atawood, for the quality of academic interactions we have had over the years in departmental seminars, workshops, and conferences. I thank you all for your capacity for reflection on our practice, your capacity for healthy skepticism and hard-nosed critique, your capacity for optimism, enthusiasm, as well as warm friendship. Now, my MPhil mates, Professor Francisca Edubando. I'm so grateful to her. As I told you, we were only three mates. And I liked the support she gave me. In fact, the support we gave one another. Then you have Professor J.Y. Sechibedu. I think I mentioned him. Sometimes I wonder how he's able to study. Those days, as students, I think at that time, he must have been the president or chairman of GAMEC, Ghana Methodist Association of Choristers. He was all over the place, traveling here and there. And yet each time we had presentations, JY was present to make his presentation. And when he makes his presentation, it is so deep that you wonder what time he gets to be able to make such presentations, given that as the chairman of an association covering the whole of Ghana, he had to be traveling from one society or diocese to another. So thank you, my MPhil mates, Professor Edubando and Professor Sechibedu, for the kind of support that you gave me, even in the journey to this point. Now, my administrators and supporting staff. I profoundly appreciate over the years the fantastic administrators with their subordinate officers I've engaged with while a student, lecturer, head of department, and dean. I remember Mr. Daku, Fred, Yvonne, Flory, Audra, Richard, Nati, Brigad, Marian Lamte, and the current administrator in my department, Elizabeth Crunchy. In fact, I still remember Fred. Fred, are you here? Yes, that's Fred. It was Fred who took me through the rudiments of how to be an administrator. As an academic, I was the coordinator of the communicative skills unit, and I didn't know a thing about how to administer a unit. It was Fred who helped me to get to the basics. I'm grateful to all of you, the administrators and the supporting staff, for the support given. I also acknowledge the spiritual impact of the Scripture Union, Ghana Methodist Students Union, GAMSU. At a point, I was the secretary in this university, the Methodist Church, Abra, and Wesley Cathedral, and other Christian groups throughout my personal and academic journey. In fact, some of my friends have expressed regret. Friends in the Christian community. They have expressed regret that I never became a reverend minister. I don't know whether it's late, but I always tell them that I had never received any calling. And so I couldn't have become a reverend minister. But I'm aware of many professors who, after retirement, become reverend ministers. Perhaps for all you know, very soon I will become a reverend minister. I would like to thank God for my early Christian friends, such as Ghana's, the former High Commissioner to Sierra Leone. If you can show it. This is His Excellency Francis Abakar. He was Ghana's High Commissioner to Sierra Leone. But as I speak to you, he's together with his siblings are receiving the body of the mother, the 90-year-old mother, and tomorrow the mother is going to be buried. And so that explains why he's not here. Otherwise, he would have been here. The next is Her Ladyship, Hannah Taylor. She's right in front of me. Hannah. When we went to Seku from class 6, I went with her. So it was the two of us in class 6 who went to Seku. I went after Seku from 1 to 5. I went to Apam Secondary School, and you went to Agri, right? Okay. She decided to go to Legon because of law, and then I decided to come here. Ever since we have become very close friends, very close friends. So that's Her Ladyship Hannah Taylor. And then there's another person I'd like to mention. That's Bishop Saki. He's the second to those who know Dag Heward-Mills. If Dag Heward-Mills is not there, he's the next. That is Bishop Ebenezer Abednego Tevia Saki. Again, he was my mate together with Hannah in Seku, Form 1. Okay, so that's Saki. He just sent me a note. He was trying very hard to be here. He tells me he'll be here by 5 o'clock. Is it 5? It's past 5. Okay, but he said he'll try and be here by 5. Okay. The next is, we simply call her Anas. Of all the 3 friends, Anas was the closest to me in terms of where we lived in Sekendi. She was a former headmistress of, I think, University Secondary School. And Holy Child as well. And Holy Child, yes. So that is Mrs. Anastasia Tomford Orchard. So these are my close friends, right from secondary school. Right from secondary school. Let me also mention among the Christians that have been mentored and helped along my journey as a Christian by a number of people, including Mr. Bona, Mr. Joel Oyetunde, a Nigerian, obviously, you can see from the name, who is not in Ghana at the moment. And then Mr. Castro Bosumchi. Mr. Castro Bosumchi, where are you? Can you stand up so we can see you? I think when I was in Form 1 or so, you were in upper 6 or lower 6? Upper 6. But he was among those who mentored me, who trained me, together with, is it Brother Achampan? Yes, okay, those days. I mean, everybody was brother, sister, that kind of stuff. Should I call you Brother Castro? Or Mr. Castro? So thank you, Mr. Castro Bosumchi, for being here. Was Mr. Pencil able to come? Oh, Mr. Pencil, that's another senior of mine in school. Thank you. Mr. Paul Aoche, we spoke. He's in the US, so he's not here. Mr. Eugene Johnson, he was my prayer partner for some years here. I'm not sure he's here. Now, my Singapore friends, Dr. Eddie Bannerman Wood, are you here? Eddie? As for Eddie, when I went to Singapore, the system was quite different at the time from the system in Ghana. And so every assignment at that time, you had to type. And in those days, if I had to type something, I would have to type and look at the machine. And that was a problem. But Eddie Bannerman was so fast. So anytime I had an assignment, I would just write everything out, and then Eddie would type everything out for me. And so I owe a lot to him for helping me along the way. So Eddie Bannerman Wood, but I also had Umar Idrusu, who was an economic student, a PhD economic student. I had an Indian friend, Sanjeev, and Nigerian friends, Raphael and Archibald. And I had a Singaporean friend, Angara. And one of my Singaporean mates was Jennifer Tan. And I like the moments we shared together on campus and outside campus. I also like to mention some associations that I've been identified with and who have provided various forms of support for my growth and development as an academic. I'm talking about Linguistics Association of Ghana, Ghana Name Society. But I'm also grateful to SECO Old Students, the 1980 group, APAM Old Students. I'm also grateful to UCC 1988 Old Students, and all other groups that have, in one way or the other, helped me to come thus far. Let me also say that I have neighbors from Sekendi who are here. We lived in a big house in Sekendi, Bakano. And some of the children of the people who lived in that big house, I believe, are here. I would like to mention Auntie Cecilia. I don't know whether any children. Oh, Angeli, thank you for coming. Angeli, thank you. Mr. Akofo, is there anybody? Mr. Akofo's children, Mr. Akofo. Okay. Mr. Ahin. Ankato, yes, thank you for coming. Thank you. Mr. Kenya, Anki Days. Anyone represent Anki Days? But thank you so much. Mr. J's children, Maud, anyone here? But thank you for all the support and all the opportunities that we had when we were growing up together in that big house. I also thank my newfound neighbors at Butmejebu. My neighbors at Butmejebu, where are you? All my friends and neighbors at Butmejebu, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much. Mr. Bonnie, Mr. Ado. Okay. I would like to also thank my Abusheping. I don't know whether he's here, but the rep, Sister Kakra. And I'm sure the other Council of Elders are also here. Members are here. From Tamisasi, in Tonwodo. Okay. In Tonwodo, Tamisasi, where are you? Okay. Thank you. Now, I appreciate the Abakawood family from Takrade, Elmina. Okay, thank you for being here. My siblings, Ima. Okay, so he's the one who comes directly after me. The next is not in Ghana, Augustina. Egbert. Okay, that's okay. Ebenezer. Okay, thank you. And then Gifty. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your love and support, respect and trust over the years. Our relationship has been unique in many respects, and I relish it very much. Let me also talk about my cousins. I'm sure they are here. The Ayinsus, are they here? Kwesi Ayinsu, Kujata, Lovelace, Dorothy. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Uncle Ben Akon, Benako. Okay, thank you. Araba Binwa. Ekwa Prempe. And my kids. I have 3 kids. 2 of them, that's the last one, who is Priscilla Finba Afful. Okay, so just to 2 of them are not in Ghana now, and so that's why she's the only one here representing the others. And so I thank them for their tolerance and love over the years. This is our family celebration. I'm grateful to them. Finally, my wife. Where are you? Okay. I thank my wife, Vida Hatton, for her support over the years. I'm indeed very grateful. But I think that I also have to thank a group of people. That's the planning committee. I want to thank all of them. I want to thank Elishaba, Dr. Abassam. So that's Dr. Abassam. Next. Joanna. Next. Hannah Dolores. Dr. Isaac Minlaru. Dr. Oseo Akoto from KNUST. One of my PhD students, Kofi Bifa, and one of my PhD students, Bakwin Kingsley. I guess that's the end. Thanks so much for helping to put this together. If for any reason I have not mentioned you, just pardon me. And thank you very much, if for nothing at all, for your presence here, for listening to all that I've had to say, whether you understood or not. Thank you very much. Okay, can I sit down? No. Okay.
Right, so at this point, we're going to witness what we call the robing. It's a brief ceremony to welcome Prof formally to the College of Professors. On that note, I would invite the College of Professors to help us with the robing.
I have a junior brother, even though he's far senior to me. But this ritualistic business, I want him to do it. I'll have another opportunity one day too. Manana is here. So thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of College of Professors, we are very proud to receive Dr. JBA Afful in our midst. We hope he will strengthen our college and continue to help us to make an impact in the university. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Professor Afful.
Where's the rope? So today you have heard him. He was hiding in one corner. Hold on, my dear. He was hiding. Today he has showcased himself. Now you know him. When you meet him in the street, Obinfo, JB Afful. And he's coming in with all the young ones who are joining us later to help innovate, to help revive and give the College of Professors the real mandate that it is expected. And he's expected to groom many more students, many more hands for Mother Ghana and Mother UCC, University of Competitive Choice. So on this note, I'll invite our acting Vice Chancellor. Here he is, my son. With the help of Professor Bon Simpson. Where he is now? Welcome. So they will help rope the young one to welcome him symbolically into the College of Obinfo. And so you see that he is going to remove that, it's almost like Casford color, and I'm happy. But unfortunately, he has to remove it. When I see Casford color, I'm very happy. The Hall of Halls. So this is to symbolize that he is formally welcome into the house, into the family, and that he is being challenged, as I said, to continue to work and to now work harder than he was doing. And so thereafter, when they have finished robing him, we will now congratulate him and whisper a few words into his ears. That one nobody will hear. That's the ritual. All right. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Hello.
Members of the College of Professors are now taking turns to congratulate Professor J.B.A. Afful. To have a good photo with Professor Afful, members of the college would take a photo with Professor Afful. Thank you very much, College of Professors. I would invite the Registrar, Mr. Gideon Enoch Abekwe, to congratulate Professor Afful. We're welcoming the Registrar, University of Cape Coast, Gideon Enoch Abekwe Esquire to congratulate would invite the Vice Chancellor of UNIMAC, Professor Eric Opoku-Mensah, to take his turn to congratulate Professor Afful. He indicated he's a mentee of Professor Afful. I would invite the immediate past registrar, University of Cape Coast, Mr. Jeff Tay Emmanuel Onyami, to make his way upstage to congratulate Professor Afful. Professor Abigail Opoku-Mensah, Director, Center for International Education and Collaboration, UPSA, would also take a turn to congratulate Professor Afful. She'll be followed by the Provost of the College of Agriculture and Natural Sciences, Professor Rufella Kombe. We're welcoming Professor Abigail Opoku-Mensah. Coming up, the Provost of the College of Agriculture and Natural Sciences, Professor Rufella Kombe. Let's welcome Her Ladyship Justice Hannah Taylor, the Supervising High Court Judge, Kumasi. Classmates of Professor Afful. On that note, my ladyship, can you stay on the side as I invite Mr. Damson, the class 6 teacher of Professor Afful? Do we have other classmates here? Year group mates, seniors from SECO? SECO? Mates, seniors from SECO. You do this together with Mr. Damson. So they are with their class 6 teacher. Thank you very much. We'll invite the former acting director, SEDICOM, Mr. Spencer Francis Taylor, to also take his stand. We're welcoming the former director, Central Region Development Commission, SEDICOM, Mr. Spencer Francis Taylor. Would invite the wife and children. The wife and daughter who is here. We're welcoming the wife of Professor Afful and the daughter who is representing all the children. We would invite all siblings who are here, brothers and sister, brothers of Professor Afful and sister, siblings who are here. Siblings, sister of Professor Afful, please. Gifty. Gifty, we are waiting for you. After this, we would invite all family members to also take their turn. All family members will take their turn after the siblings. All family members, please approach the dais. All family members, please come up stage to take a photo with Professor Afful. All family members, please stay on. Siblings, you are part of family. All family members, please. All family members. All family members, please approach the stage for this photo. Coming up stage, all family members. After family members, Miss Alfreda Apre. Miss Alfreda Apre. After family members. UCC will follow after Miss Apre. UTAG will take its turn after Miss Apre. Miss Alfreda Apre will now take her turn. UTAG is next after Miss Apre. Department of English, please get ready. After UTAG, Department of English. After UTAG, Department of English. PhD students would also come after the Department of English. UTAG is taking its turn now. After UTAG, the Department of English. Is the Department of Communication Studies here? Department of Communication Studies. UTAG, University of Cape Coast, is currently on stage, taking its turn to congratulate Professor Afful. Department of English, please. Please make your way up the stage. Department of English. Please note that when you approach the stage from my left, exit from my right. Department of English. PhD graduates who have their work supervised by Professor Afful. Department of English. We currently have the Department of English within the College of Humanities and Legal Studies here at the University of Cape Coast, taking its turn to congratulate Professor Afful. Please exit from my left so that the Department of Communication Studies can make its way up. Department of Communication Studies, please approach the stage from my right. My right. Department of Communication Studies. PhD students, please approach from my right. PhD students, please approach from my right. PhD now. Professor Brichum. Professor Brichum will take his turn after PhD students of Professor Afful have their photo with him. Professor Brichum. Please exit from my left so that Professor Brichum can make his way. Thank you very much. After Professor Brichum, I see the very Reverend Dr. Wabere Nkrumah here. Let's welcome Very Reverend Dr. Wobber Nkrumah with the Methodist Church Ghana. And then the Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Professor Kwabena Safo Kantanka, will take his turn. Dean, Faculty of Arts, with staff members of the faculty, or faculty members. Professor Kwabena Safo Kantanka, Dean of the Faculty of Arts, together with members of faculty. We'll take the final photo with MPhil students. Please move towards the stage. MPhil students of Professor Afful, kindly approach the stage. From my right, please. Please approach from my right. All MPhil students of Professor Afful. So Prof. Afful, one of your students would want to make a presentation, Alex Ohiming. Sorry. After which your MPhil students would also follow suit. So the gentleman is only representing Alex Ohiming. All MPhil students, please join in the photo. This will be the final photo. Professor Afful with his MPhil students. Anotewa will take a photo. We currently have MPhil students of Professor Afful on stage. Please note that you'd exit the stage from my left. Please exit from my left, and then our poet will take the very last photo with Professor Afful. Thank you very much. Prof, you would exit the stage, but you will take the turn on my right. As you take your seat, you would shake hands with Osabarima, Dr. Kwisata, the Ogwamanihin, then with Nana Kwekwenu, the Marahin, and then the Krontehima of Ogwanana Amma Iyaba, on your way to taking your seat. Let's applaud Prof as he makes his way down the stage. This is the very final handshake he's taking from Nananum. It climaxes the inaugural lecture. The final round of applause for him again. Ladies and gentlemen, we've gradually inched towards the end of the event, but before we wrap up, kindly help me acknowledge the following individuals. We acknowledge the chair for this occasion, the Pro Vice Chancellor, Acting Vice Chancellor, and incoming Vice Chancellor of UCC, Professor Dennis Wolenyo Aheto. We acknowledge the Registrar, Gideon Enoch Abekwe Esquire. We acknowledge Osabari Makwisata II, the Ogwa Manhin. Nana Kwekwenu III is Mara Hin of Ogwa Traditional Area. Nanambe Yaba is Kontehima of Ogwa and the Queen Mother of Efutu. We acknowledge the Vice Chancellor of the University of Media, Arts and Communication, Professor Eric Opoku-Mensah. We acknowledge former Vice Chancellor UCC, Professor Domweni Dabere Kumpole. We acknowledge former VC GIMPA, Professor Philip Bonzi Simpson. We acknowledge former Registrar UCC, Mr. Jeff Tay Manuel Onyame. Former Acting Registrar UCC, Mr. Ebenezer Agre. The Provost of the College of Agriculture and Natural Sciences, Professor Rofella Kombe. The University Librarian, Dr. Anthony Mark Kobler. We acknowledge Professor Abigail Opoku-Mensah, Director, Center for International Education and Collaboration at UPSA. Her Ladyship Justice Hannah Taylor, Supervising High Court Judge Kumasi. We also acknowledge the following members of the College of Professors: Emeritus Professor Paul Baswa, Professor Sarah Dakwa, Professor Yao Ankuma, Professor John Victor Mensah, Professor Livingston Sam Amwa, Professor Eric Francis Amukwando, Professor Eugene Date, Professor Ishmael Mensah, Professor Dorcas Obriyaboa, Professor Reverend Engineer Professor Ernest Tay, Professor Joseph Agrifin, and Professor Rosemary Bosu. Thank you all so much for gracing the occasion. We would invite our Acting Vice Chancellor to give his closing remarks. Let's welcome him with a round of applause.
Thank you, Akusia. Mr. Registrar, Osaberima Kwesiata II, Omanhin of Ogwa Traditional Area, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you agree with me that we've had a very interesting inaugural lecture as usual today. Let's give, on that note, Professor Joseph Benjamin Archibald Afful a resounding applause. The topic has been extremely interesting and complex at the same time, especially for those of us in the sciences having to delve into English language. And I'm tempted to call upon Professor Brichum to ask one powerful question. And I know Professor Afful will be very angry with me. And the College of Professors will take me on, because at inaugural lectures, questions are not supposed to be asked. But on a more serious note, we want to, on my own behalf, as the Acting Vice Chancellor, and on behalf of management, congratulate Professor Afful for coming up, taking this challenge upon himself to deliver his inaugural lecture on the topic, Tale of Two Cities, the case of an applied English linguist. In this lecture, the Tale of Two Cities have been used as a metaphor, according to what he explained, to epitomize the work of Charles Dickens, 1859, where in that book he compared the pros and cons, the best and worst practices in London as well as in France. Using that as a metaphor, he focused on the relationships between theoretical linguistics having to do with, and compare that also with applied linguistics. Applied linguistics referring to the real world language. Two cities, in this sense, in his lecture, has been used to represent the theory and practice of the use of English language. And as he noted, as native, we are not native English speakers, but have to communicate in English. And therefore, it is very important to build a nexus between these two areas. The two contexts, these are two different contexts that are different when it comes to linguistic studies, having to do with theoretical linguistic, according to how he explained it, formal academic language, English language, and applied linguistics having to do with everyday Ghanaian or local English language. His reflections really has taught us that it is important to build that synergy, making sure that the way a manner in which we use language, English language, functions in our workplaces, in the conferences that we attend, as well as in the publications and work that we do. He also noted that it is important to also look at the policy aspects of it, where we need to ensure that communication policies also focus on the use of local naming practices. In view of the time, I took quite a lot of notes, but in view of the time, I would like to end here and use the opportunity. I want to use the opportunity on my own behalf to thank all of you for coming. As I always do, I will use the opportunity to announce the next inaugural lectures. On the 25th of June, Professor Mohammed Augustine Takase will be giving, is he here? Yes. Will be giving his inaugural lecture. And a month later, on the 30th, that is a tentative date for now, Professor DDAJ would also be giving his inaugural lecture. The last thing I want to say is that I have been in discussions with the College of Professors to see how best we put structure into our inaugural lectures in terms of the timing and the content. And I'm very happy that Professor Afful has given further clarity on what inaugural lectures are. I took copious notes on your initial slides in terms of those that are research focused, the narrative reflections, inspirational, because more often than not, once we leave here, people ask behind the scene, was this really an inaugural lecture? Why was it not research focused? Where are the publications? Because sometimes it's also important to also showcase impact. So I'm very happy that you have opened our eyes into the various dimensions of inaugural lectures. And with the permission of the College of Professors, I will be co-opting you into the committee to help put a lot of structures into our inaugural lectures moving forward. On these notes, I want to thank you once again for your attention and for coming. Thank you very much.
We shall take the closing prayer to be said by Reverend Dr. Patrick Kwampa. He is with the Chaplaincy Committee. Let's all rise and take the closing prayer.
Shall we pray? God Almighty, we thank you for an insightful inaugural lecture. As we are about to bring this program to an end, we thank you for your presence. We thank you for the university authorities, all the dignitaries, functionaries, Nananum, and all stakeholders that grace the occasion. We thank you for our professors' achievements. We commit our departure into your hands, and we ask that may you continue to bless the entire university and everyone here present. We thank you for an answered prayer. This we pray in the name of Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen.
Let's kindly remain standing.